Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the Moto X from Motorola. So as you know, Motorola is now a Google company, and this is the first phone from that partnership. So the Moto X is really designed for mainstream audiences, and it's available on all the major carriers, including Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. Now the interesting thing about Moto X, among other things, is that this is built and assembled in the US. So Moto X designed and assembled in the USA. Now the other thing about the Moto X is that it's highly customizable, so you could use the Moto X creator to create a version of the Moto X you prefer. So you can select the back color, the front color, you can select the trim color such as the buttons and the camera ring. You can also select the type of material on the back, whether you want the smooth texture or the woven texture. You can also select your boot screen animation, not boot screen, but your message on your boot screen, as well as your wallpaper. So you can do a lot of customization. Now you can get a black or white version stock, so I have the white version, which happens to be my preference all around. Now you can also get an all black version if you prefer to go more stealthy. Now on the back of the box, you just get Moto X designed and assembled in the USA. You get a description of what's included with the packaging, as well as some trademark information. Of course, this is an Android phone because this is Google. So this is running a fairly stock version of Android 4.2.2 at launch. I'm sure 4.3 will come soon enough, or 4.4 KitKat. So we'll see how long that takes to get here. So we have a little tab here to cut, so let's go and slice that. Alright, so let's lift the lid and take a look to see what we get. So this is the AT&T version. As you can see, we have the AT&T sticker, texting and driving, it can wait. It's covered in plastic right now, so we're going to take a closer look at that in just a minute. Let's just get through some of the accessories. So we have this little cardboard tray. We have our literature packet, Motorola. So inside we'll find Moto X. Let's get started. It's a quick start guide on how to use your Moto X, how to install the SIM card, what the buttons do, what the ports are. We have Safe Smart Protected. This is your safety and warranty guide. We also have our accessories in the bottom. So we have our matching white USB cable, micro USB for charging. We also have our SIM ejection tool here. Very nice SIM ejection tool. There you go. We'll demonstrate that. So we have a matching white USB charger complete with that Motorola indent, which resembles the Motorola indent on the back of the phone. 2 USB charging ports, and it's fairly compact overall, so this is a nice travel charger for your phone. Unfortunately, we do not have headphones here, so you're going to have to supply your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at the phone itself. First off, we got to peel off some of this plastic. A little tab here at the corner. We'll lift that up. Now taking a look at the design of the Moto X, it's actually kind of interesting. It's a little different. So this is the stock white version, so you get a white faceplate, a white back plate with the silver trim pieces. That includes the buttons, as well as the ring around the camera. Now the back panel is this woven texture, which is actually under sort of a plastic layer. It's kind of an etched plastic. It has a nice texture to it, so it adds to gripability. And as you can see, it's kind of a convex shape, so it fits your hand nicely while keeping the edges of the phone thin. So on the back you find your 10 megapixel autofocusing camera capable of recording video at 1080p at 30 frames per second, an LED flash right below that. You have your loudspeaker, your Motorola branding, which is a nice concaved shape there. Down the bottom you find your AT&T branding in this case, as well as your microphone, so there's another microphone. Down below you find your micro USB charging port, which also supports MHL, so if you get an adapter you can connect HDMI to this phone and output to a television. You have your nano SIM tray. So this is using nano SIM, just like the Apple iPhone 5, as well as the other Droid phones from 2013 sold on Verizon, like the Droid Ultra, Max, and Mini. Up top you'll find your headphone jack, as well as another microphone. On the side you'll find your volume rocker, as well as the sleep wake button. And that's about it. On top you'll find your proximity sensor, your earpiece, and a 1.4 megapixel front-facing camera which can record video at 1080p. Now on the bottom you'll find another microphone right here. This is your mouthpiece, but you won't find any off-screen buttons. They're all on screen here. So it's a pretty minimal design. It has a very nice, dense, solid feeling to it, so it feels really high quality. Definitely not the lightest phone, but it has a nice feel to it. Now just to show you that SIM tray, so I'm going to eject the SIM using the tool they include. So you have a little tray here which is open-ended. So you basically place the card in here, slide it in, and you're good to go. Alright, so let's go ahead and boot this up for the first time. I'm just going to tap and hold that power button. So you get your Motorola animation. Now this is a 4.7-inch AMOLED display, which has a pixel density of 312, so it's a little shy of the iPhone, and certainly well shy of something like the GS4, which has a 1080p display over 5 inches, which gives you a pixel density over 400. Now the Moto X features an active display, so instead of using a notification LED light like a lot of devices do, this instead flashes the information on the screen. This is one of the benefits of using an OLED display, is because it only lights the pixels it needs to use. So it's actually fairly energy efficient. It doesn't need to light the entire display to show you this information. So basically flashes sort of not incrementally, but it kind of flashes automatically. And the great thing here is that it shows you some of the information here. So right now it's showing me that I have an email notification. Now you can also wake up that notification just by tipping it over like that, or if you take it out of your pocket, it's aware that it's in your pocket and you just removed it, so it will flash this notification screen. So for example, if you take it out of your pocket and you want to quickly unlock your phone, basically all you have to do is hold on that and unlock the phone by dragging it down here, or you can launch right into the app. And in this case, it's taking me right to junk mail. But you get the idea. It works with all notifications, so voicemail, text messages, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Now, in real-world practice, I actually find this a very convenient way of unlocking the device, especially if you take it right out of your pocket. So instead of hitting the lock button and unlocking the phone, you basically swipe down on the screen and unlock it. So it's kind of a slick, quicker way of getting to your phone screen. So I really like that feature. I think it's one of my favorite features of the Moto X, and it's such an important thing because it's something you do constantly throughout the day. The fact that they've removed an extra step, that they've anticipated the fact that you want to unlock your phone, that you can just touch the screen and swipe down, makes a big difference. It seems like a small deal, but it actually makes a big impact on your enjoyment of using this phone. Now, of course, one of the biggest features here is the fact that you can interact with the device without actually touching it using Google Now. So you can say something like, "Okay, Google Now, what's the weather like tomorrow in Detroit?"
Tomorrow's forecast for Detroit is 79 degrees with a chance of storm.
So basically, as you can see there, it wakes up the device, unlocks it, and then gives you the search results, but you don't have to pause for any of those steps. You can basically speak. So let me lock the device again and show you. "Okay, Google Now, how tall is the Empire State Building?"
The Empire State Building is 1,454 feet tall.
"Okay, Google Now, how tall is the new World Trade Center?"
One World Trade Center is 1,776 feet tall.
"Okay, Google Now, launch YouTube." "Okay, Google Now, play Coldplay." So as you can see, some actions do require interaction, so you can't do everything through voice here. You can do some things through voice, so it's not quite the Star Trek computer we're hoping, but at some point I'm sure it will be. Now, a familiar Motorola feature is called Assist. We've seen this with the Droid phones. One of them I reviewed previously, the Droid Ultra. So we have driving mode, meeting mode, and sleeping mode. Basically, these are automation processes. So, for example, when you're driving, it automatically detects whether you're driving using GPS, so you can change its behavior. So you can say, "Read text messages and tell me who's calling," and you can adjust this here. Read text messages, tell me who's calling, so you can select which one. You can also select an automatic response, quick reply with "I'm driving and we'll get back to you soon," or do not reply at all. You also have resume play music, so when you get into the car, it automatically turns on your music. You also have meeting mode here, which silences your phone or sends an automatic response to your favorite contacts. And you have perhaps the more useful one, which is sleeping mode. Basically, you can select a specific time of day in which you want your notifications to be turned off, and you can select some other features here. So for example, you can either silence it, or you can adjust specifically who you want to be able to come through your Do Not Disturb function. So if you want your favorites to call you to get through that feature, you can select that. And if somebody tries to call twice, it will get through that. Now taking a look at the user interface, which is mercifully pretty much stock. It's not a heavily skinned user interface. It does have a few Motorola exclusive features, which of course make this not quite stock. This is running Android 4.2.2. Of course, we're about to hit 4.4, so hopefully we jump right to 4.4 pretty soon. So on the lock screen, we have our familiar controls here. So we have our lock screen widgets, which I find very useful. And you can add more widgets just by going to this plus sign. You can see your selection of widgets. And you can also, let's go back to the lock screen here. If you swipe to the right, you get to the camera. So that allows you to quickly access the camera, but there is an even quicker way of accessing the camera. Again, this is a Motorola exclusive feature. Basically, you just twist your wrist, wakes up the camera, you get a little vibration indicating that it's activating, and there is your camera app, which I'm going to explore a bit later. But first, let's get through the interface. So here's our home screen. As you can see, I've already moved in and set up, and I've been using this phone for about a month now. You can see I've got several pages here. Pretty much it looks like stock Android. You got, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 home screens, which you can customize. You can tap and hold anywhere on the screen to change your wallpaper. Now, of course, you can easily customize your wallpaper just by tapping and holding on the background of a home screen. So you can see you have your gallery, your live wallpapers, and the wallpapers that were included. So as you can see, the default wallpaper is this sort of patriotic theme wallpaper, and that's because this is assembled in Fort Worth, Texas. That's one of the reasons Moto Maker exists, is because this allows customization, infinite number of customizations with this phone, because it can be basically assembled within the country and shipped out to the new owners within 5 days. Now, of course, we also have our notification shade, and you can expand your notifications using that 2-finger gesture. You can also switch to your quick setting toggles here. So you have your settings, brightness, your Wi-Fi connections or whatever cellular connections. You have your battery status, airplane mode, and Bluetooth toggle. So for example, if you want to change your brightness, it takes you to your brightness control. If you want to change your settings, just go to your settings, takes you to your settings panel. And as you can see, again, it's pretty much stock Android, but you'll see active notifications here. So you can control how the active notification panel works. So you can enable active displays. If you want to turn that off entirely, you can do that. You can also manage the type of notifications that come through here. You can also enable more privacy. So if you prefer no information to be available on the lock screen, as you can see when you have your notifications on the lock screen, that information is public. So if somebody wanted to pick up your phone, they could conceivably see what that information is, like your text messages or your emails. And you can use Motorola Connect. Now, Motorola Connect is a feature that works with a Chrome plugin on a web browser. Now, we also have touchless control, which basically allows us to interact with the device without actually touching it. First, let's show you how to train it or to configure this device. So let's go ahead and re-record it. So you do have to hold the phone while training, so let's try this again. Okay, Google now. Okay, Google now. Okay, Google now. Okay, Google now. What's the best smartphone?
No one phone is right for everyone.
Now, as you can see, this Android control bar is kind of translucent, so it looks like the buttons are hovering over the home screen, but this is not system-wide. So, for example, if you go to the app or any of these apps, it does turn black. It doesn't float above any of the apps. So it's kind of a nice effect. It would be nice if Android would actually support this across all apps at some point, because this would give us on-screen buttons without robbing the screen real estate. Now, as I said, one of the neat features here is the ability to quickly launch the camera just by sort of flicking your wrist. Now, the camera app itself leaves something to be desired. I'm not a big fan of it, mostly because it's too simple. So, for example, if you want to tap anywhere on the screen, it takes the photo. But usually the behavior I expect is to be able to focus. Now, that behavior is off by default. So what you can do here is slide in this little control bar here from the side, and you can activate touch to focus right here. If you click OK, you can now tap to focus on the scene before taking the photo. So as you can see, as soon as you tap the photo, it focuses it for you and takes the photo. If by default, otherwise, there is no tap to focus. So it basically snaps the photo and decides to focus for itself. To me, that's a little annoying, but of course you can toggle it on and off if you prefer. Now, just to explore this sort of setting wheel here, so you have your HDR mode, which you can set to auto on or off. You have your flash mode. You have your touch to focus. You also have slow-mo mode, so slow motion video is turned on. We also have our panorama mode, which you can activate. And you can also enable geotagging. We also have our volume, so we can turn off our shutter sound. And we also have the quick capture, which is that sort of a wrist flick you can do to wake up the camera. Now, I also have burst mode just by tapping and holding the screen. So it's going to focus and then take its photos. So that will fill up our gallery here, and we can swipe to our gallery to see all of the photos that were taken. Now, we can also record video. We can also take photos while recording video just by tapping the screen. It shuts the shutter sound off so it doesn't interrupt your video. You can stop it. And again, swipe to get to your gallery.
You can also take photos while recording video just by tapping the screen.
Now if we enable slow motion video, we can record this quick segment here. It's recording at the standard 30 frames per second. If we click stop, swipe to play our video clip, you can see the effect here. It's not as smooth as something like the iPhone 5S slow motion mode. So you can see it's a little more uneven. So it doesn't quite work as well, but it does give you that option. Now in terms of our display, this is one of the highlights of the device. So even though it's not 1080p, it's still a very sharp display. So it won't compete with something like the GS4 on resolution, but the display is brighter and the colors are a little more accurate. They're not quite as blown out as they are on the GS4 or something like the Note 3. Text is very sharp, so if you really zoom in here, even on the smallest text, so even though it's not a 1080p display, it's still really sharp here. Now one of my favorite things about this phone is just how thin the bezel is at the edges. So you can see the display basically comes right up to it and the display is laminated to the glass, so it's right on the surface. So it creates a really nice effect. And when you're holding the device, it basically feels like you're just holding the display, nothing else. It gives you a nice large display without bulking up the phone. Now let's go and talk about the Moto X specs. So this is where things are a little interesting and a little unique in the Moto X's case. So right now I have the Geekbench 3 scores up, but first let's talk about what is powering the Moto X. Now Motorola calls it the X8 system on their chip. Basically, they call it an 8-core processor, but it's a dual-core 1.7 GHz CPU plus a dual-core Adreno 320 GPU and 2 co-processors, one dedicated entirely to voice. That's the technology that enables the voice control without zapping the battery. So it's really geared toward battery efficiency, and because this is running stock Android, it's a really quick operating system. It runs really smoothly. There's not a lot of cruft over the top of stock Android to get in the way, so there's not a need for a lot of processing power here. But if you look at your Geekbench scores, it scores a pretty average to somewhat low score here. So if you look at the GS4, you can see that the single-core processing is about the same, but the multi-core processing is quite a bit different. Of course, if you look at the Note 3 here, again, much higher on the Note 3, which is a higher-end or higher-spec device. And of course, you have your iPhone 5S, which is a screamer here at 1408 over 2551, a much higher performer with that single-core score. So the Moto X definitely isn't a spec machine, but it's a very capable device. Now, I've been using this phone for about a month, and there is absolutely no performance issues. There is no lag. You would never know that this is not a high-spec phone. So it basically performs as any other stock Android device would. It's pretty quick, pretty smooth, and you can launch your recent apps, and you can get around pretty quickly with those 2 gigs of RAM. So there definitely doesn't seem to be any sort of performance restrictions on this device. So you don't have to pay too much attention to those specs if those are a big concern. Now, battery life is the other big story with the Moto X, and it's one of the standout features for me, and one of the reasons I really like this phone. So a phone this size usually has a hard time getting through an 8-hour workday for me. I use my phones really heavily, and I work in a building that kind of blocks the cell signal. So my devices really struggle to keep connected to my cell towers. So that really taxes most phones, and I'm not able to get a full workday out of most of them. That includes the iPhone, the GS4, the HTC One, and only the Note 3 can really keep me going for that long without needing a charge at some point during the day. The Moto X is the other phone that can do that. So I'm pretty impressed overall by the battery performance of this device. Definitely a standout reason to get this phone, and that system on a chip, that X8 processor from Motorola, really does its job in terms of battery performance while still providing all of those active features like that active display and that hands-free voice control system. Now, there are 2 features on the Moto X I find difficult to live without when I jump to other smartphones. The first one is active display, for showing me my notifications without actually having to interact with the phone. Basically, you take it out of my pocket, shows me my notifications, and I can quickly swipe on the screen to activate them. The other thing is that it's simply much easier to unlock the phone. So you pull it out of your pocket, the display is ready to swipe to unlock, and it makes it basically a lot quicker to access your device. Because I do that so often in a day, that is a huge thing for me. It makes my workflow a lot simpler. It just makes the device a lot more elegant to use, and it's something I really miss when I go to other phones. Now for me, the second thing is quick capture. So the ability to quickly launch the camera app is a huge thing. And while I'm not a big fan of the camera app itself, it's kind of nice to be able to quickly launch the camera and touch anywhere to take a photo. So if you need to take a photo really quickly, this is definitely the best software solution I've seen to date. So for me, I really miss something like this because there are a lot of occasions when I'm driving, for example, and I just want to quickly launch the camera without looking at my phone. I can twist my wrist, bring it up to my line of sight and take a photo. So for me, that is a huge thing which I really miss on other phones. Now in terms of touchless control, that's definitely a powerful and unique feature for the Moto X, but unfortunately the results are still unpredictable, or the behavior of the feature is too unpredictable. Some things can be spoken to you, other things require you to interact with the device, so you find yourself not really using it just because it's not as reliable as you need it to be. But if you know certain things will always produce spoken results like the weather, so for example you're getting dressed in the morning and your phone's on your dresser and you just want to ask what's the weather like today, or is it going to rain today, it can help you out with that. But other things do require you to interact with the phone more than not. So it's a great feature, but it still has a ways to go. Now in terms of camera performance, I'm actually really impressed by this camera. Even though it got pretty negative reviews, I think they've been able to improve the firmware since the launch of the phone. So images come out really sharp, exposure looks good, color accuracy looks good. So I don't have any complaints about the camera. It's maybe not the best camera in the world, probably can't compete with things like the iPhone 5 or the Nokia 1020, but it's right up there with something like the GS4 or any high-end Android smartphone. So I'm definitely impressed overall with this camera, and for me there is no hang up here. So if you're interested in this device but concerned about the camera, I would say don't sweat it and get this. So in conclusion, the Moto X is my favorite Android smartphone on the market today, and it didn't have to do that by having the biggest screen, the sharpest screen, with the best specs and the most RAM. It just had to have great design, a great display with great software, with some features that actually matter, features that I actually use. It's otherwise stock Android, so it runs really smoothly and quickly, gives you excellent battery life thanks to those co-processors, and you have features that really make a difference. So you also have excellent design with customization, if that matters to you. You have excellent customization, and you have about the perfect design here that fits the palm of your hand very comfortably. So in the end, the Moto X is my favorite Android smartphone of the current time. So that's going to do for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.